Welcome back to Face the Nation. We're discussing and debating the looming power and energy crisis in Sri Lanka. Lots of questions, lots of perspectives, lots of opposing, dissenting opinions. A very interesting conversation. My first question is to Dr. Nishan Dimel. Dr. Dimel, we keep talking about climate change. Climate change is before us. Do you think, how do you think this needs to now filter down to the masses? That's my first question. My second is, do you think our policymakers, the parliamentarians that we have in Parliament, do you think they comprehend the concept of climate change in order to make policy which best suits the country in going forward?
Yeah. Certainly, I think climate change is a serious issue for the world. We should all be concerned. We should all do our part. But, you know, Sri Lanka is not going to make a dent on climate change by itself, and we are not the big players in terms of global pollution. Okay, but that doesn't mean we should shirk our responsibilities.
And we have made undertakings internationally.
And we have made undertakings, but I think, you know, if I look at it sort of, you know, in terms of our population and our country, my first concern is about the pollution that we create. You know that what's happening in Delhi right now, and the acceptability to our society of the costs created through our diesel generation, through our coal generation, and taking those costs and concerns of society seriously. We don't develop by simply increasing GDP or increasing production at the expense of human lives and human interest. Really, development is about paying attention to what people want. So I agree with Dr. Bhattakuda that, you know, that CEB had reasons to expect Sampur and other power plants. And yet, you know, when we understood the opinions of people and they looked at what happened with Norocchole, it became clear that socially, the acceptability of coal is quite low because people's lives are affected negatively. Now, if you try to make it clean coal, that is through carbon capture of, say, 90%, then the costs become impossible and unacceptable. So I think we must take the economic cost seriously, not just the production cost. That does not make economic sense for our society or for our development, not to take the external cost seriously. And that's where I would focus our attention about, and that makes for good climate change policy as well.
Right, but do we have the necessary parliamentarians to make policy in Parliament?
You know, I think that often we talk about the politicians and the parliamentarians needing to solve these problems. I think it's a mistake to expect politicians to be technocrats. That's why you have a bureaucracy. That's why you have a public service, because they are supposed to be the technocrats, and they're supposed to be able to give information and analysis that is accurate, reliable, and actionable.
Is
and
that
parliamentarians
happening at the moment?
can set policy accordingly. I think, you know, this is not about the CEB, but across the board, Sri Lanka's bureaucracy is rather weak. It's much weaker than we imagine in its technical capacity and in what it produces in terms of analytical information for decision making. Now, this is causing parliamentarians to suddenly put a technocratic hat on and try and evaluate and decide who's right and who's wrong.
But Nishan, surely you agree that parliamentarians need to have a certain level of intelligence and intellect to comprehend policy and technical matters.
That is right, but we must also have these debates on the basis of technical analysis, not on opinion. So I was on the way here reading the report by PUCSL, which contested the long-term generation plan of CEB. I think if the CEB does not agree, then they need to have a response that is in black and white, that's written down, that lays down its assumptions, analysis, and makes the case. Now, legally, I think there is still only one agency that can decide the matter. So this is not a matter of, you know, everybody having to agree. If people can't agree, the law determines, you know, who can decide, and we should, I don't know who that is, one of you can tell me, but we should really make a decision, because not making a decision is costly. But also, I think I find it quite troubling that a lot of our extremely important public policy debates are taking place as opinions between personalities, rather than based on white papers and documents that are written down that everybody can analyze and understand and make sense of. So even parliamentarians have a problem because they don't have actually analytical documents in front of them. They have pieces of paper with opinions and positions, which is wholly inadequate, and we do need the bureaucracy, I think, to improve its game in that respect.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Damita Kumar Singha, you're the head of the Director General of the PUCSL in Sri Lanka. Now, with regard to the report you formulated and the disagreement that the CEB has with it, Nishan points out that it's his opinion that the CEB should respond in black and white in terms of opinions, recommendations. Have you had a conversation? What has the process been? Can you just elaborate for our viewers?
No, actually, probably just a clarification. You are referring to the long-term generation plan decision or the cost associated with the delay in implementation?
That's right.
Long-term generation.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
The former.
So, long-term generation plan has been a well-discussed document which has gone through 2 public consultations and many discussions with limited stakeholders, including CEB. So, number 1. Number 2, long-term generation expansion plan is not about coal or LNG or to make that decision. So, long-term generation expansion plan should have 2 main objectives. One is the energy security, second one is least economic cost. So, those 2 are non-negotiable conditions as far as the long-term generation plan is concerned.
Right.
Right? We all agree on that.
Correct. Okay.
Right? No one disputes that, number 1. So, now you have to understand energy security. On the energy security side, as I said, we are looking at 60% renewables, 20% gas, 20% coal in 2030. I don't see any better energy security mix that we can achieve than that by 2030, number 1. Number 2, regarding the economic costing, the costs are very clear. Costs are very clear. The renewables are cheap, gas is cheap, coal is the next one. So, you have to, in this plan, all the cheap technologies are included, nothing is excluded. So, the moment you have this plan, read it, so it is very clear it's the least cost. I can show it in 2 words that it's least cost, very simply, by giving the figures of the last tenders, and I can show you that it is the best energy security mix that we can have in 2030, which is in line with the government policy, which is in line with the least cost, and which is, I think, is acceptable to all in Sri Lanka, because we have undergone 2 public consultations and nobody has opposed this.
So, where's the disagreement then?
As Nishan said, it's opinion. And when you start debating on coal and LNG on a much broader economic issue, these things happen. So, you have to look at the 2 non-negotiable things in the generation plan, energy security and least economic cost. When you focus your discussion on these 2, I don't see any dispute is there.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Bhattagoda, now Mr. Abegunawardana said there's a tug-of-war between the CEB and the PUCSL. So I'm thinking, let's resolve that on Face the Nation tonight. Can you tell us what the issue is so that we can resolve it now and just move on towards the more sustainable Sri Lanka?
Personally, now what happened is, now we have to accept CEB is one of the largest agencies in the country. About 25,000 people, about I think around 1,000 engineers. I mean, a lot of people are there. Around 1,000 engineers are working there together, all these things. Now, they have been mandated certain things. Preparation of long-term generation plan is their job. They have used international accepted software or some software models.
Right, all of that is correct.
Exactly.
But where's the disagreement?
I know, exactly. So then when they propose something, we all disagree with them. Now what happened is, everybody is in the media, government, all professionals, public society is against what they propose, including PSCSL. Then issue is, so are we going to reject completely what CB engineers propose, saying certain things? Of there are some people say they are mafia, the people say engineer union is getting all kind of things. So where are we going? I mean, so my opinion is we have to accept, we have to respect their views, some degree. Of course, there are some can be changed, of course, but we have to listen to them also. If you completely abandon that a big organization, and PUCSL start preparing the long-term generation plan, and it doesn't work. I think we have to listen to both sides. That's what I'm going to do. Listen to CEB, listen to them, and whether we must accept each other. So now at the moment what's happened is, I also don't believe that PUCSL should not change significantly, like number of size of power plant, for example, which is, I don't like this. So when the CEB proposed, based on the certain software modeling or scientific analysis, we need a 300 megawatt power plant at this place. Then PUCSL said, no, stop 300, make it 150, which is too far, my opinion. So we are, both sides must listen to this, and of course listening to the public, and must do correct thing. If we are to completely forget CEB, it doesn't work. They are the lot of professional organization, so we have to listen to, they also have some point possibly. So what I don't like is some misleading people. Now when we stop having coal power plant, if we don't have LNG, until we get the LNG, tell me today what are the sources that we can produce electricity? Only oil. If somebody say no, you can have a solar, wind, which is wrong, complete lies. So until we get those battery storage, all those things, in the short term, if we don't have LNG, if we don't have coal, we have to run on diesel, right? That's the oil, which is the facts. That's what CB doing. That's what CB is telling, that we have to work in balance. So that's why we have all our time to be extremists. My opinion is PUCSL also going a little bit extremist type, CB. So we have to, I think you are intervening with this. I like to have at least media agency try to settle this issue. I think we have to come up with something. So, but no delay so far, which is wrong actually. Because after 2020, lot of power plants coming, right? Because government stopped this coal power plant in 2015. Now we are running without power cut. I guarantee this 2 years is a little bit short possibly, which will be managed. But after 2020, no problem, except this coal debate, all other plants are, we are in agreements. So I don't think there are no power crises so-called. Only debate we have to do is whether to accept certain degree of clean coal power plant or how many. That's the only thing. So my personal opinion is relying on completely on the LNG only, which is risky possibly, because everybody is going for LNG. With the prices, we don't know what happened in the world. Everybody going for LNG. So LNG market also can start chaos way. I mean, we don't know. So we as a small country, possibly having balance is good, my opinion.
Right. Okay. Finally, Mr. Asoka Abegunawardena, as one of the major stakeholders engaged in power and energy in Sri Lanka, how do you see us going forward, especially given the fact that there are now multiple stakeholders with often dissenting opinions? How do we collate all these stakeholders and move towards a sustainable sort of country, given the fact that there is so much dissenting judgment?
Yeah, while taking a decision, what's important is science, not opinion. So firstly, we need to clarify what's science and what is the scientific outcome. Now, for that purpose, we have to have a long-term generation planning exercise and a transparent set of tools, the tools we are using and also the input data. So the debate was there regarding the input data, because as long as CEB was handling this on their own, it was not an open process. There was a black box. There are certain answers coming. Always coal is cheaper, cheaper, cheaper. But when you analyze the input data, it's cooked data. It's not the scientific basis-based data. There are a number of assumptions which cannot be justified. So that's why there's another player came into the picture as the regulator. So I think there's a court case right now on this matter. We can clarify, the court will give a decision. But conceptually, CEB is the implementer, it's the utility, and the Ministry of Power and Energy should be concentrating on policy matters. They should be addressing the policy issues and establish the policies. And the regulator should make sure that the utility is functioning based on the government policies. That's the mechanism that should be there.
So, Mr. Abegunawardena, that's not happening at the moment,
exactly.
Right?
The problem is now when the generation plan was submitted by the CEB to the regulator analyzed it, got the public opinion from the different stakeholders, and realized that the input data is incorrect. Input data is incorrect. That's the case.
That's the fundamental flaw, right?
Yeah. So now the decision is made by the PUCSL, the regulator, and it's up to the CEB to implement that. So situation is now they are going to reverse that and try to take trade union actions against science, against decisions, against mechanisms. So that's the sad part of the story. Now let me explain one point. Now when I mentioned that emergency power is expensive, Dr. Badagoda said that it's not so. But I have to explain this. When you purchase a unit from emergency power plant, there are two components. One is the energy component, the other one is the capacity charge. Meaning that for a shorter duration, we have to repay the capital cost of the power plant. So when the number of units consumed is reducing, unit cost increases. So the calculations done during the PUCSL consultation with the data of the CEB, it was clearly stated that it's 40 rupees a unit. If the number of units consumed is reduced due to rain, then automatically this number getting increased. So it's false to say that it's only 28 plus. No, it's not so. You have to add the capacity charge as well. So from that point of view, the key point I want to stress is that it's pretty sure that beyond 2025, there won't be any new coal plants coming in Sri Lanka, because we don't have coal mines. We have to, in the long run, purchase coal we have to import coal from Indonesia or somewhere else. In the long run, definitely there won't be any new coal plants coming. Then why CEB is so keen to have this coal plants, 2,400 megawatts of coal plants from 2025 to 2036. Why this is? Just to show that renewables and the others are not long-term solutions. As you are not pushing for a long-term solutions midway, then we have to go for expensive oil-fired power plant. So it's a mafia. It's like a Trojan horse that coal plants are proposing. Behind that, it's the coal mafia, because if you avoid having a long-term solution in between, then we have to go for emergency power. That's the trick behind this. So it's very clear that we will not have two separate solutions for the short term and long term. It's the same solution, because now renewables are cheaper, and there's no case as such until 2020 that we cannot absorb the fluctuations, or we have no storage issue as such, because we have the storage capacity in the hydropower plants. So beyond that, we are quite aware that worldwide storage costs are reducing at a rapid rate. So beyond 2020, definitely we will be having number of other storage solutions in addition to pump storage power plants. Pump storage power plants, it's on the line. We can work on that. Once you do that, there's no case for coal as. And I would say that LNG is not the ultimate solution. Gas is not the ultimate solution. It's also a fossil fuel, but less carbon emitting. That's the most important part, and it's a right blend to have LNG and renewables because it's complementary. But coal is not so. It cannot absorb fluctuations. So it's an intermediate solution. Once the storage solutions are there, there's no issue for LNG as well because it's not the long-term solution. But if you have gas fields in Mannar Basin, then there's a case for that because we have our own indigenous resources. But coal, it's not so. We will not have coal mines in Sri Lanka. It's very clear. So in this setup, it's quite obvious that long-term solutions is definitely renewables. The renewable prices are dropping rapidly, storage prices are dropping, and coal, if you are going for this the less polluting coals, meaning that its cost is much more higher than this. So current prices clearly indicate that coal is expensive, but for the future, coal will definitely much more expensive than renewables. So the future is clear. I don't think that CEB few engineers can obstruct this path to sustainable era. We cannot hang on this fossil fuel era because it's very clear path. Government policies are very clear. Economics are very clear. Financial analysis is very clear. So we cannot hide this. Definitely the solution will be renewables with storage facilities.
Right. Thank you very much. Dr. Batagura, is there a coal mafia?
I don't know. The people are talking like this. Well, various people are saying so many things. For Ashok was talking about the hydro. Last year, hydro dropped to 9%. Almost we stopped hydro generation. So at that time, what to do? I mean, so a lot of, we can say something, but not solid for throughout. Sometimes hydro is zero, sometimes coal plant can be broken down, but we have to manage. The CEB has to provide electricity. But we can talk a lot of things. But the question is, in fact, we stop entire hydropower generation from Victoria, Randanigala because of agriculture. The drinking water because of the bounce cycle, all the drinking water. So we are not relying on the hydro. But Ashoka say we can use hydro. It doesn't work like this. But sometimes, of course, now we can use a lot of hydro. But then, a few months later, all died away. So, but CEB as an institution, they are talking, and we have to take a balance. So people don't accept. That's a different story. But I don't know why people are talking coal mafia, all these things. So see, as you mentioned, many stakeholders are trying to bring together. So we have to come up with something. But
right.
if a nation decided, okay, we don't want coal, it's a different story. But the CEB as an institution, they saying, advise the government, we should have balance. So we don't know what's happening in the coal in future. We don't know what happened in the LNG. So therefore, better to have.
Dr. Batagura, you mentioned the CEB as an institution.
We have to give an opportunity to Charita to ask questions because I think she has several. Charita, go for it.
Thank you, Sonali. Dr. Batagura, is it true that the union at the CEB has withdrawn from sitting at technical committee meetings? Is it true?
Which is true actually. They declared several times non-cooperations, all these things. They want to pressure the government.
Okay.
Say that, so listen to us a little bit. They think in future, if we don't have a coal in the mix certain degree, they are talking about 25% or some proportion. But they are talking about in future, we are pushing all these things. If unit cost increase, finally they have been criticized and all these things. So they are now, even now, they declared some kind of, it's not trade union actually, it's non-cooperation type thing.
One trade union or?
Engineers union.
Engineers union. So is that why you're saying that people should listen to the CEB stand?
No, that's why. I think when we created a big institution like this, 20,000 engineers, we cannot dump them. They as a team. So as maybe Ashoka mentioned, a few engineers, maybe. But if you as a union, all the 800 engineers are together.
So are all of them together?
Together, exactly. So then when you have, I as a secretary, I cannot just reject them. I am also environmentalist, but I can say if they say something, but we never know.
So what about the general manager, the chairman, are they also part of the union?
Not part of the union, but they are also consulting with them, and they are also, as a CEB, as an institution. And tell us.
I have to direct the questions to you because Sonali, we invited the CEB and they declined to take part. So whatever questions we have towards the CEB, we'll have to fire it at you.
Yeah, please,
okay?
please, yes.
Right. So, so does it mean that the whole, okay, the trade union is against the proposal by approved by the PUCSL? So does it mean that the entire CEB is run by this trade union?
No. CEB trade union is part of the CEB, but the CEB as general management and also chairman, board as an institution, of course, listen to the union. Otherwise, you can't just ignore them. So, as an institution, they proposed to the ministry, saying that they want coal in the mix as a certain percentage. But while we are increasing the renewables, the coal should not be ruled out. That's what the proposal.
Okay, fine. So, as the debate progresses, we are losing time and the situation is getting aggravated. As the Secretary of the Ministry of Power and Renewable Energy, what are you doing about the situation?
It is it's not correct. It's a situation aggravated. They are not doing anything. I told you already. There are 5 power plants already designed completed. 500, 500, 400, 300. All the power plant, LNG plants are negotiated, completed. They are ready to implement immediately. So, solar, I know you told us rooftop program, 1 megawatt, 150 megawatt already advertised, 90 megawatt coming next week, 100 megawatt solar coming, 100 megawatt solar coming, a large number of solar, 170 megawatt wind. A lot of projects are moving. Okay. Only debate is going on the coal. Other power plants are moving already.
Okay, so if we can't break this deadlock, what is your alternate plan of the ministry?
No, at the moment we have the power plant. I told you, solar, wind, LNG, all the power plant on schedule, moving. Only 2 years possibly we might have short. That's why we are trying to get some emergency power. But this only debate going on whether to include coal in 2025, 24. That is the debate going on. Other plants are moving already.
Mr. Kumarasinghe, do you agree with Dr. Bhattagoda's stand?
No, now actually, I want to, now as Dr. Bhattagoda said, there are 1,400 megawatts of LNG power plants which government has already committed, which are the plants which are in the plan from 2021 to 2026, right? Now we are talking about the PUCSL approved plan. Nothing else. If you take whatever the CEB submitted, it doesn't contain these plants, right? So this plan now from 2021 to 2027 already committed, as Dr. Bhattagoda said, and it's going on. And there is another natural gas power plant which is already tendered, right? So the plan is being implemented at that level. But from now until 2021, we don't have any long-term plans in the plan. I mean, no LNG coal.
For 3 years you cannot have. So just for the short-term measure we are.
And I will explain that. So for that, whatever the plans in the plan should be implemented on time. So there is a delay in implementation. Number 2, the other question we should ask is, why this vacuum created? Because of non-implementation in the past. So if you look at the implementation, Norachole third phase was the last base load plant that we implemented in 2014. And until 2021, now for 7 years, we don't have any base load plant to be implemented. That has created a vacuum. For that, we are now trying to get renewables plus few diesels to bridge that gap. So since renewable is cheap, there are about 850 megawatts of renewables in the plan during that next 2-3 years. So that has to come in quickly.
Dr. Bhattagoda, do you agree that there is a delay in implementation?
But this actually
that's costing us a lot of money?
See, we have to understand why this happened. Actually, we have no
but a yes or no answer, because I want to actually direct.
So we all know there are 500 megawatt coal power plant to be scheduled to be in 2020 sample. Another 1,600 megawatt coal power plant with the Japan, which was in the Sampur itself. We have abandoned 1,700 megawatt power plant, right? We just stopped in 2015. We understand, right? So we stopped that plant. Then we are talking. So then when we stopped 1,700 power plant which was scheduled, discussed, arranged, completed. So the 15, 16, 2 years. So we are now shifting those plant to 500, 500, 400, 300, all these things. We are doing already.
Taking that.
What it delay, we don't know. So when we stop 1,700 power plants which were designed and developed, now transition, so as I clearly explained, those power plants are on this rescheduling after 2020. So then we have a 2 year some gap. Until to that gap we are talking about is a barge bouncer plant. Damita was talking about delay is a emergency plant 100 megawatt. Those are delay. Otherwise, long term scheduling not delay actually.
Taking that answer as a yes, I want to come to Mr. Kumar Singha. I want to talk about this report that PUCSL put together about financial impact of delays in implementation. In that, under recommendations, it said the government may consider a change in industry structure if the generation plan implementation cannot be efficiently carried out within the current structure. What does that mean? What is a change in structure mean?
No, what it means is that now we observe about 50 billion loss over a 1.5 year delay or 1 year delay in implementation of some plants. So if we are not implementing that on time, if this structure fails, then we have to come out with some mechanism to implement these plants on time.
So this doesn't allude to some sort of kind of hierarchy, bureaucracy, some sort of the way things work kind of structure?
No, that has to be decided by the experts, right, how we should make these plants implemented.
So what are those plants delayed actually? For example, now, as I mentioned, 1,700 megawatt of coal is stopped suddenly. Now, in place of those, we reschedule. Today actually I submit 3 cabinet papers to have 1,500 megawatt completed, which is starting to 20. So then it takes 2 years to actually to design and complete. Now we are talking about 2 year short term measure. No? After 2020 we are talking about so many power plants coming in a row. Then Damita was talking about the 50 billion loss. Is for 2 year delay. No? What are 2 short term measures? Which is the emergency power delay and also barge. So what else otherwise? So if you have a long term scheduling is already completed by after 2020, so delay is purchasing emergency power, no? Short term power. Otherwise, so if beyond 2020 no issue, we change the policy in 2015, 16, 17 those 3 year issue, no? With 50 billion, PUCSL saying that loss is 50 billion for short term power plant, not the long term power plant. It's not coal.
Not so we're talking about coal today.
Exactly, no, but his 50 billion is for 3 year power plant, no? Not the long term power plant. Long term power plant cannot be commissioned this year or next year. So this loss is delaying purchasing emergency power plant.
No, not only that. Now in the generation plan,
tell me what are the
we have 850 megawatts of renewables.
Right. So
right?
those are
and we have this 300 megawatts of natural gas, and we have another 300 megawatts of diesel.
Yes.
Right. So altogether, we are talking about nearly 1,500 megawatts.
Those are diesel, no?
So 300, but we have the natural gas plus renewables of 850 megawatts. So those things should come on time. Now the implementation plan submitted by the CEB is deviating from the generation plan itself. So ideally, generation plan and the implementation plan should coincide.
Right.
So that delay.
Let me tell you, in Lanka, Sampur power plant started 2006. It delayed 10 years because of the lot of environmental issues. All this not easy. Even CEB transmission line we cannot build 5-6 years. Remember Apakotmale power plant, which is a hydro. It took almost 10 years from the date of having money. So I personally involved, and you know how much difficulty we faced this. A lot of projects, even the wind plant, hydro plant.
So Dr. Bhattacharya, EFL, the Environmental Foundation Limited and other experts and organizations shut it down. They went to the Supreme Court and...
Oh, that's Apakotmale.
The other one, Sampur.
No, Sampur, they didn't shut down.
The Environmental Foundation Limited filed a fundamental rights application against the coal power plant in Sampur, Trincomalee, focusing its attention on the unsuitability of coal in terms of health, ecological destruction, etc. So there were clear-cut
issues. Which is not true. By the time EFL went to the court, it has stopped already.
Dr. Bhattacharya, Charita started...
When the court case came, I wrote letter saying no court case relevant.
It was withdrawn.
No, exactly. By the time, the president has stopped that power plant because of this whatever thing. And after that, only AFL went to the court. It's not a court case.
Dr. Bhattacharya, I'll ask you this in your personal capacity. You said you're also an environmentalist. We're aware of your previous work. You personally don't support the introduction of more coal. You as an individual do not support the introduction of more coal.
No,
am I right?
Personally, I prefer LNG or something against the coal. Right. But at the same time, if there are a lot of people are proposing cost-wise, so
it's not a lot of people, is it?
No. As an environment,
it's one union.
No, environmentalists can't be too extremist. Environment science say even Apakotpale was so objected. Even the wind power plant which is coming in the Bana still had a problem because of the environmental issue. So we must know what is the carrying capacity, how much can accommodate. So not many coal plant can come. 1 or 2 projects with a lot of controls, we can do it.
Dr. Bhattacharya, I quickly want to ask you this question. We were talking about the opposition, the roles of the different parties involved in this. Charita started off this round asking about a union. I'd like to conclude this round also with this union. Now, am I right in saying that this is the union, or rather a former president and former secretary of the union, that are the petitioners in the court case that you mentioned? I'd just like to make a clarification that a petition has been filed, but leave to proceed has not been granted as yet. It has not been taken up, so a date has not been set. There's something strange here. I mean, everyone has the right to go to court, and the learned judges of the court will give a fair decision, as is what we expect from the justice system. So if it is not just the union that is advocating coal, why is it the union that's in court and not the CEB?
Union not gone to court. One individual has gone to court. That's why.
Who is a representative of that union?
No, it's not a member, but it's a former president. But they don't claim they are going as a union. But that's a different story.
So, Dr. Bhattacharya, again, I want to, because it seems that the roles here have been confused. Now, the PUCSL's role in this is as the role of the regulator.
Yes.
The CEB's role in this is the executor. It's supposed to carry out the plan. Unions, this is my contention, a union's role is generally to uphold the rights of the workers that it represents. Is it the unions? I asked you earlier, the first question that I posed to you was, is it the CEB's job to determine and decide on energy policy? I'd like to rephrase that question now. Is it the union's job to decide and determine energy policy at a national level?
So union has to be the part and parcel of the policy making process. We just cannot ignore them.
But right now it looks like they're blackmailing you.
No, they are not blackmailing. They are also powerful union. But of course, the power sector policy, electric engineer union must come forward and do bigger one actually. So maybe they are dominating possibly. That's true. But that's the policy making. I, as a secretary.
But Dr. Bhattacharya, this is what I understand. The PUCSL has approved a generation plan that is in line with the government's stated policy. That stated policy has a mandate as well. It is what we, the people of Sri Lanka, have voted for. It is part of that overarching mandate that was given to the government. There is one union within the CEB that opposes this.
But which is wrong.
How is this not blackmail?
Maybe you're putting union into picture may be wrong in a way. But the debate is created by the long-term generation planning division. They were engaging with the PUCSL always. The long-term planning division, they say they proposed this plan based on the scientific, technical formula, mathematics and all these things, world accepted software program modeling. They are not just pick up plant arbitrarily. Those are the power plant coming.
But I think, Dr. Bhattagoda, at the end you should ask this question regarding this union's aversion to taking on renewable energy, and also the all-important question at the end of the day, while all this debate is going on over facts that are already accepted, prices that are already accepted, so the debate seems unnecessary. While all that is going down, someone is benefiting. And I think that perhaps you, as the Ministry Secretary, should probably take a serious look at who is benefiting and what their interests are.
You mean delaying this? Which is, I don't agree with this. Those figures, I have figures with me, I think those are unit costs, all these things. Various costs are there. But so we have to understand whether we work as a balanced approach. If you're proposing complete neglecting unions, you can ban union in the country. It doesn't work.
No, you can't. They're very important
exactly.
to protect workers' rights. But
exactly.
it seems that the union has gone beyond protecting workers' rights to deciding national policy. So maybe we should ban the government and let the union run the country.
To me, long-term generation, I'm having a lot of debate with both parties. So they say, all engineers say, their proposal is coming out of the full professional scientific evidence.
Right, okay. So there are contentions to that as well. Before we go in for our final break, Charita, you have a question for Dr. Dimel.
Yeah, Dr. Dimel, now we've been listening to all this uncertainty, and it looks like a mess, right? There are huge mega development projects in the pipeline. There's Port City, there's Hambantota, there's Megapolis. There's a lot of construction within the Western Province itself. As an economist, how do you see this in contrast to the situation we are faced with uncertainties in the power sector in terms of investment, in terms of economic growth? What is your stand?
So I think I said it at the beginning, thanks for asking, that actually both the cost of power and the availability of power and what we call energy security can be significant impediments for Sri Lanka's economic progress going forward. So the rankings we have on global indicators already suggest that Sri Lanka has a negative outlook and is ranked quite low, and ranked lower than lots of very poor countries, even African countries. And I think the fact that that the cost is also high, and this is not about the fact that we don't use coal, it's about also the nature of agreements we've got into, the nature of implementation. So there is a serious failure in the quality of contracts, the quality of implementation, and the quality ultimately on the outcome. And that has a negative economic outlook for the country. So I think it is very important to have this discussion, because we must solve the problem. But as I said earlier, you can't solve the problem by simply throwing opinions back and forth. I think it's very important to elevate this to a more professional discussion, where if there is a disagreement with a position taken by one institution, there is a paper that's written by another institution, and as I think Asoka said, the numbers must be transparent. We cannot, I think, accept the fact that because the CEB's planners use some sophisticated software, that we must now trust the outcomes without question and somehow accept the superiority of these people to make decisions that cannot be subjected to scrutiny. In a democracy, everybody must be willing to have their analysis, their numbers, their assumptions subject to scrutiny, and manage disagreements in a professional way. And I think it's that professionalism that we must really ask for now from the CEB as well as all the government institutions to enable us to get to a reasonable solution and do it quickly.
Can I put one minute? I think I'm against this Nissan comment on this. We are bad than African countries. I think Sri Lanka is the only country to provide 25 hours electricity. Every household in the country given. Last year we had 350,000 households were given electricity. Everybody who asked for it, we are given. Even the mud hut, little Cajun house. So 100% coverage is there. 24 hours there without power cut with this. I think we start we are not that bad. I mean, we are putting us more below the African
we must
countries.
get out of impressionistic claims.
But this is very wrong, actually.
To actually factual, analytical sources that
I don't know how it happened.
Rank us on factual, analytical numbers. And these are published by the World Economic Forum. But the fact that Dr. Bhattagoda doesn't understand it doesn't make it untrue. And I think it's very important, Dr. Bhattagoda, to get out of this opinion that you feel differently to actually a professional assessment, which is what these numbers are doing. And I'm against this approach that says I have an opinion, you know, my opinion is important, and if people don't listen to me, then I don't agree. That's not okay. We must accept that numbers mean something, that facts mean something, and be willing to discuss on the basis of those facts. So I respect Dr. Bhattagoda and what he's trying to do, but I don't accept that. I think as a think tank, as a research organization, we are committed to good information and good analysis, transparently done and subject to scrutiny.
Dr. Bhattagoda, we are appreciative of the fact that you came for Face the Nation today, but just one last question. What is the status of the EPL for Norochele power plant?
EPL is delayed. I think the given note. I'm not sure actually. There's some few delays. I'm not sure actually.
I think it expired sometime.
Expired, but they reapply. I think by now it should be getting. I'm not sure.
Okay, but if it hasn't got it, can it operate without a license?
But I'm not sure actually. Why they delay this? This is a major power plant, and once you're given annually renewal, all these things. But we told these people to lodge. They have lodged the application.
Maybe Mr. Kumar Singh can answer that. Do you know whether the Norochele
EPL was given or?
The environment license.
I know just expired, then I intervened and told them to, but their explanation was they have made application, but not get the approval yet.
All right, we're going for our final break. We'll be right back with Face the Nation.